Recording in progress.
And I read it. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you this evening to this meeting of the Town of Poughkeepsie Town Board on March the 5th, 2025, and we will start with a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, as we begin roll call, it's a great pleasure to welcome back Board Member Bill Reuter.
So good evening. Bill Reuter from the First Ward. So
Barb,
now
sorry.
that you gave me a little introduction, I want to say thank you for everyone. I just had to step out for a sudden operation, and it was pretty scary, but I'm back, and I wanted to thank everybody for their support. I can't wait to get back and work for the town, so thank you, Supervisor.
Hi, I'm Barbara Laird for 2nd Ward.
Ann Berger, 3rd Ward.
Michael Safone, Fourth Ward.
Good evening, Ryan Sharp, Fifth Ward.
Ann Church in Sixth Ward.
Felicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
Emily Svensson, attorney. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And Deputy Town Clerk Jess Moore.
Deputy Clerk Jess Moran is with us, welcome.
Emily Svensson, attorney to the town.
Rebecca Edwards, Town Supervisor. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is 3 public hearings. So we'll start there, and then we will open for public comment about the rest of the agenda. We'll review the agenda and open for public comment on those items. Okay, who would like to take the first public hearing? We need to hold this one over, but we can open the public hearing for anyone who wants to speak on this. So,
Would you like to introduce it, Supervisor?
Go right
Thank
ahead.
you. So this is a public hearing on amending Chapter 168, short-term rentals, and Chapter 210 for zoning. The regulations regarding short-term rentals in part relate to the changes in regulations of accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. A number of changes for redefining apartment to SDR, maximum number of people to 2, and the owner needs to be present, so there's a number of changes within this regulation, okay?
so we're kind of cleaning up some language. Okay,
Cleaning up.
and so we move to open the public hearing? Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, is there anyone who wishes to speak about the code amendments on short-term rental regulations? I see Doreen Tignanelli online, welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to about the code amendment that includes the accessory dwelling units as short-term rentals. The board voted last November to allow detached single-family ADUs in all districts in the town so that you could increase available housing. So it seems counterproductive to then turn around and allow those units to be used as short-term rentals. So I'm against the inclusion of the short-term rental accessory dwelling unit in the definition change.
Okay,
And
thank you.
the
We are in
allowable.
the process this month of capping the total number of short-term rentals in the town, both hosted and unhosted. So that's going to come back at an upcoming meeting, just to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to speak on this matter? Okay, then we do need to adjourn this to the next meeting because the entire law was not posted online in the packet. So I move to adjourn this to the March 19th meeting. So to make sure that members of the public have a chance to see the whole thing and not the abbreviated version. And then we will reopen the hearing then if anybody else wants to speak and vote at that time. So I move to adjourn the hearing to our next meeting on the 19th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then that public hearing is adjourned and we will continue on the 19th. Okay, second, Barb.
So I'd like to open the public meeting for continuing a temporary townwide moratorium on development of large-scale battery energy storage system installations within the town. And I think that is about it. We're just going to open and see if we have any comments from the public on our proposed continuing the moratorium on BESS systems.
Okay, so there's a second. All those in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then the public hearing on extending the moratorium on large-scale battery energy storage systems is open. Anyone who wishes to speak on that? Yes, welcome.
Good evening, Supervisor Edwards and members of the board. Many of you already know me, but for those who don't, my name is Lucia Yu, and I'm a project developer at Key Capture Energy, an Albany-based battery energy storage developer, owner, and operator. KCE appreciates the town for recognizing the benefits that large-scale BESS will provide the community and the effort that has gone into this process. I am here today not to speak about KCE's proposed project, but about the future of BESS in Poughkeepsie more broadly. We understand that the board may not be ready to pass a BESS law today, but before you decide to extend the moratorium, I'd like to highlight some key facts that can help inform the discussion. The batteries used in today's systems are lithium iron phosphate and must undergo rigorous national and international testing. All systems that are installed today follow standard testing protocols, including the UL 9540A and NFPA 855 tests related to fire and thermal events. This testing includes purposely causing batteries to catch fire and assessing the impacts in a controlled laboratory setting. The findings from these tests are what guides safety system design to ensure that in the extremely rare chance a thermal event occurs, it will be isolated to that single container and will not spread to other parts of that system. By performing this extensive testing and analysis, we know exactly how a BESS will perform in a worst-case scenario, which allows first responders to know what to expect should an incident occur. New York's Interagency Fire Safety Working Group has released safety recommendations that the town already intends to follow. These guidelines were created by industry experts for municipalities like Poughkeepsie that may be less familiar with the technology and are hesitating to implement their own code. All proposed BESS projects need to undergo third-party review by a recognized independent engineer or utility engineering review before being installed. Any system installed today, including any that would be built in Poughkeepsie, would have to pass and meet these standards from the state and from the third-party reviewer. Regarding fire department training, Key Capture Energy will provide all necessary training for emergency response protocol. This training will occur far in advance of the project being built, so emergency responders will already be familiar with the response procedures before the project is operational. During the application phase, KCE will develop a unique emergency operating plan with input from the fire district. The final version will need to be approved by both the fire district and by the planning board. KCE will meet with local first responders during all phases of the project, including the development of the project as it goes through discretionary permit approvals, during construction, and during project operations. We understand that the town is leaning towards extending the moratorium to continue the discussions around BESS that have been ongoing over the last year. If this is the case, we urge the town to also finalize the proposed BESS code that has already been drafted and pass it into law as soon as possible. Many developers, us included, were initially drawn to Poughkeepsie because of the town's climate-forward thinking. We would like to continue to invest in the town's clean energy future, but will not be able to do so if the moratorium continues to be extended and the BESS code is not adopted. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Lucia.
Can you remind me the address of where your proposal was from?
It's on Manchester Road, across from Spy Hill Road, to the east of the Central Hudson substation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else in the room. Oh yes, if you'd like to come forward, people who are in the room, and then we'll move to people who are online. Welcome.
Hi, Mark Murray, Ward 2. I sent a prepared statement. I think is actually a great follow-up to the one that was just made. I submitted 2 documents along with my email that were pulled from the New York State website that should be entered in the town record. The first is the 15 fire code recommendations that were submitted by Governor Hochul's Interagency Fire Safety Working Group in July of 2024. The second is a copy of the New York Battery Energy Storage System Guidebook for local governments recently updated in November 2024, which incorporates the advice of the Fire Safety Working Group. And I included relevant highlights that I made that I believe are salient to our conversations that we've been having here. I'd like to ask each member of the board to take the time to read those documents and to carefully consider their content. I've included those highlights, as I said, part of the discourse. The guidebook is a long document, and it's the last section that's titled Citing Battery Energy Storage Systems under the 2020 Fire Code of New York State, which starts on page 59. As the primary section to study, it is relevant to utility scale BESS systems, although its earlier sections pertaining to a model law, model permit, and electrical checklist also appear useful. For now, some of these are just recommendations on top of the 2020 Fire Code, noting that local authorities having jurisdiction, which is us, can act upon them now. The New York State Uniform Code is expected to be updated in the second half of 2025, meaning later this year. And at that point, these recommendations will likely become revisions and essentially cemented into state law. If of particular interest are the items about fire remediation, peer review, commissioning, and emergency response plans and regular fire department training, which I believe will speak to Board Member Siffone's concerns that he voiced last month at the February meeting. We do not have to figure out how to approach this topic all on our own. There are many resources available to us from the state through NYSERDA to help inform, guide, and support us in considering, regulating, and overseeing any and all best installations in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And did you send that, I didn't get that from you by email. You're going to provide it to the clerk, or?
I sent it to Felicia Salvatore Monday night.
Monday night?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. We, just make sure that one of us gets it so that we can circulate it to the board
Oh.
and make sure everyone has it.
Okay,
If not,
great.
you can, if it went astray, you know,
We don't
send
sometimes
it.
get all our emails.
We don't, it doesn't always come through, so send it back and make sure, I just want to make sure we all
I'll
have it.
respond, I wrote
Great.
it down, I'll check.
Okay, fantastic.
No
Thank you.
worries.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room who would like to speak? Yes, welcome.
How you doing? Steve Osterlees, Third Ward. I guess, let me start with, I think the battery storage is probably needed. I understand the concerns of having the proper training and equipment to, in the case there is a disaster. You know, my daytime job, I joke, move at the speed of government. You know, this has been going on for a year. I think it needs to be resolved instead of keep pushing it down the line. One other thing, or another point I'd like to make is from previous comments at the last meeting and that on the public hearing, is it's often said, oh, this is for clean energy, you know, all those things. The reality is it's not. It's a storage system that will be used to be recharged when there's not a high load. It's really for high load during the day, summertime, you know, to avoid brownouts. During the day, right now in Dutchess County, the best I could find online was it's about 1.5% of our energy is solar, produced through solar. New York State's about 4.5. So the reality is what's going in solar is being consumed as it's going on. So these will be recharged from traditional sources at night when there's less demand. So again, I don't think it's a bad idea. We need it. It will avoid other need for additional power plants for the peak times. But you know, it's just one of the things that bother me. Oh, this is green energy. It's not. It's still being done by the conventional forms at this time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who wanted to speak? Yes. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Emily Hussart. I'd like to speak about the moratorium on batteries in favor of lifting the moratorium. And the reason is I've developed asthma since moving to this region.
Excuse me, what ward do you live in?
I actually don't know which ward I live in.
That's okay.
Okay, I don't remember, I'm sorry.
What
you just
street do
My
you
first
live on?
town.
Teeny bit louder, that would be helpful.
Yeah,
What
sure, I
street do
can.
you live on?
It's okay, she doesn't have to say.
Oh,
Tell
okay.
your name and where you live. That's how we've always done it.
They don't have
I
to
will
say.
find out and let you know.
You're invited to share the street, your street, if you would like to.
Okay, why don't I find out the
Why don't we
ward
just let
and let you know?
everyone speak?
Yeah.
But yeah,
The city of
That's a
Poughkeepsie
great
or
idea.
I'd like to know
Thank
who
you.
lives in a town that's speaking
Makes
in
no
favor of
sense.
something that's going
Those
in
are
the
the
town.
rules. You have to give your address.
No, you don't.
okay.
Felicia, we've always given our address.
No, you don't. It's been years since we
People-
required the address.
People are invited to give their address. I try to remind and invite people to give their ward or their address, but it is not required. Anyone who wishes to speak is welcome to speak at this meeting. And if people wish to share their address, that's great. If they don't, that's also fine. If you could keep going, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd like to speak in favor of clean air for families. I've developed asthma since moving to this area. I'm aware that we have two different types of gas burning plants. The pico plants are massively polluting, and having a battery storage facility, which with the new technology is very, very low risk in terms of air pollution. Maybe unlike a few years ago, which has had some very bad press, but the technology has changed radically. The asthma is on the rise in this country. It's the leading chronic disease for children, second only to dental cavities. The Hudson Valley collects fumes. Poughkeepsie is the asthma capital, number 18 out of the top 100 in the nation. So like I said, it's been a personal problem for me since moving here. My 10-year-old son has developed lung sensitivities and has been hospitalized multiple times. When you're exposed to asthma triggers, Your throat swells up, your airway constricts and fills with mucus. It's very frightening, and you cannot breathe. People die of asthma on a regular basis. This is very real for my family and for countless families in the area. Because batteries help reduce burning gas at peaker plants, which release unacceptable levels of toxic fumes, they will help reduce child asthma in the area in a direct way. So basically, to summarize, more batteries means less polluted air from gas plants and healthier air for local families. That's why I'm in favor of ending the moratorium.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Emily.
Is there anyone else in the room who wanted to speak on the long-term battery storage? Yes, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Mark Courtney, a resident of the First Ward, town of Poughkeepsie. I'm a licensed professional engineer with experience in electrical grid projects at many locations across the United States, and was proud to have served our community for many years as chair of the engineering program at Dutchess Community College. I am speaking again this evening in favor of lifting the town's temporary moratorium on battery energy storage systems. Justifications for this temporary moratorium have stated a lack of local regulations governing such installations, public safety concerns, and a need for more time to gather information. However, from my standpoint, it appears that, it looks like, to me anyway, that the town already has sufficient information in order to move forward. For instance, we were reminded by Town Supervisor Edwards at the February 19th meeting that the board already has a code drafted to govern such installations. Town board members have also already attended safety information sessions. Board member Laird stated at the February 19th meeting that the training sessions she attended made it clear that such installations are, to quote her directly, not radically dangerous. New York State has also provided a pathway for the training and resources required for local fire departments to act in the event that there is an issue. And there are now more stringent state and national fire safety codes governing such projects, which was not the case even a few years ago. There is also much operational data demonstrating that current state-of-the-art utility battery systems, now being commonly deployed all over the United States, are as much as 50 times safer than either electrical vehicles or earlier battery system designs. For example, the Moss Landing installation in California that experienced a fire and was recently in the news would not meet current best practice standards. Significant battery materials and system design improvements have been implemented over just the past few years, which greatly reduce the chance of a fire, make any fire that might occur less dangerous, and prevent any fire from spreading. In fact, the level of hazard for state-of-the-art battery systems that are currently being deployed nationwide is now comparable to that of a residential house fire. To put that in comparison, put that into further perspective, in the prior reporting year, there were 15 battery storage system fires here in the US. In the same reporting period, there were many thousands and thousands of residential house fires. In summary, I believe the town is pretty much already in a position to lift the temporary moratorium on battery storage systems in a safe and responsible manner, and therefore should do so as soon as is practical. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the room who wished to speak on this issue? I believe Doreen Tignanelli is online to speak. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There was someone else here in the room. Hold on, and I'll have you come back to the folks on Zoom in just a second. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Marianne Cunningham, Ward 6, and I'm here also to speak in favor of lifting the moratorium. I live about a couple of blocks directly south of the proposed site, and in my view, it's much safer than the road that it's proposed to sit upon. But I'm more interested right now in the larger question of battery storage broadly, because I think it's really important in terms of improving and making our energy systems more safe, both in terms of asthma that was spoken about a moment ago, and more broadly, about lots of environmental issues, and also the economic questions that I think I've raised before. I would like to reiterate from previous comments that I've made that my central concern here is that energy storage is important because it facilitates more locally produced energy, in particular solar energy that can be produced and sold by people in our own community, which is different from the oil and gas that we import from other states and other countries that are not as concerned as New York is about their water quality and public health. Battery storage is important because it makes local solar service serve us 24 hours a day, avoiding some of the and because it avoids some of the costs of grid expansions. Batteries can help energy producers earn more and thus keeps money in our local economy. I just want to underline the fact that we residents of the town of Poughkeepsie do spend a lot on oil and gas in our current energy system. I was looking at some data and it looks like about $50–60 million a year in 2023 and 2022 that we spent going from our pockets into those of Exxon and Chevron and others. If we want to transition to cheaper, more stable priced electric heating systems, then we need to improve the reliable and renewable energy systems. And that includes battery storage as a part of those systems. I guess I want to just finalize by saying energy to independence is something that a lot of us appreciate as an idea. A level playing field that allows everybody to play equally is something that a lot of us think is a good idea. Pouring money into the vaults of Exxon and Chevron is not something we're very excited about. Breathable air and safe household energy is something a lot of us agree are good ideas. Moving together into the 21st century of energy systems is also a good idea. The town of Poughkeepsie needs to advance alternatives to the old-fashioned, unsafe, uneconomical energy systems that we depend on right now, and this conversation is central to that. We know the hyped-up dangers are inflated by advocates of fossil energy who want us to fear progress and cling to the old ways, but we know that we in Poughkeepsie are smarter than that. We know that these advocates are trying to just stop change. And we also know that we need more energy more options in our energy system, more local options, including energy storage. So thank you. I urge you to consider ending the moratorium and give us more freedom of energy choices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was there one? Oh, there was another hand. Welcome. Yes, welcome. Come on forward.
Jeff Seidman, 6th Ward. I want to speak to board members, but also to neighbors, fellow members of the town of Poughkeepsie, residents, especially those who might live near a possible battery storage site in the future and who have fears that I think are quite reasonable. I think it's normal. You see fires on the news, you read about them. It is absolutely reasonable to have concerns and fears about a new technology coming in. What I'd like to do is try and provide a little bit of context and a little bit more information to put alongside the information that's, I think, generating and causing those fears.
Could you hold on for just a second?
Yes.
Could I talk with the council? When we have public comment, there's a limit of 3 minutes.
Yes.
In a public hearing, I have not been setting a 3-minute limit. A public hearing is open for whatever amount of time people want to speak. Am I correct?
The board can set whatever rules for the public hearing. So this has been conducted without a limit.
Okay.
The next time, if you want to set a limit, you can.
Okay. If any board member feels that we need the 3-minute limit in public hearings, we could certainly consider that. But in the meantime, I am not using the clock to limit people in public hearings, only during public comment, okay?
Okay,
Thank
sure.
you.
I'll draft a
Thank you very
resolution
much.
I'll try to be quick anyway.
Yeah.
But thank you. It's nice to have,
Absolutely.
it's nice not to have the clock
That's great.
ticking.
Thank you.
So I'd like, if I can, to share with you, I'm sorry, I haven't circulated this yet, but I will circulate it after the fact, but just some graphs. This is a picture, I hope you can see from there, of battery storage deployments in the US over the last few years. And what you can see is that for many, many years, it starts in 2015, there are very, very small numbers. And so at the end of 2020, there were 1,500 megawatts of battery storage. And then you see it starts to go up very, very quickly. So at the end of 2024, there were about 32,000 megawatts. At the end of 2025, there were about 40,000 megawatts. This is just in the US. The same thing is happening in every part of the world, in Europe, in all over Asia. And the reason it's happening is because of something that we're all familiar with from microchips, which is that batteries are simultaneously getting much, much cheaper and much, much better. Better made, better engineered. So this is a second graph. This shaded area is just the total amount of battery storage deployed, and you can see it's going up at an exponential rate. The bars at the bottom are just numbers, just absolute numbers, count of like how many incidents or failures of any kind, not just fires, were there. And you see it's more or less constant. The number that matters is this bar, which goes down and just plummets down to here. That is the rate of failures per megawatt of battery deployed. And you see that that has fallen through the floor, right? As Professor Courtney said, it is now more likely to have a house fire than to have a battery fire. But this only tells part of the story because, so first of all, the reason it's happening, the reason that the rates of battery fires have plummeted is partly just the engineering is getting much better. It is partly that the battery chemistry has changed. And so when a battery does burn, it releases much, much less heat when it is the new batteries are lithium iron phosphate batteries, not the old NMC batteries. And so they are much, much less likely to catch the battery next door to them on fire. You're less likely to have an expanding situation. And we now have UL standards that were not there 5 years ago. We now have, as was mentioned, just still being formalized, but we can adopt them tomorrow. We have in New York State the very most stringent fire safety codes coming online in the country for battery storage. That was not there a few years ago. And there's a further reason that, the rate coming down does not tell the whole story. The batteries that were made in the old days does not mean that long ago, it means 5, 6 years ago, like the battery that just caught fire in California that many of us have seen on TV, those batteries could not be built today, right? They don't satisfy the UL codes, they don't satisfy the fire codes, the engineering is far different, the chemistry is different, the fire safety prevention mechanisms are different and better. They could not be built today, but those batteries are still around. And so it's as if we lived in a world where there were still Ford Pintos all over the road, the ones that were fire traps, and driving next to them were modern cars with airbags and crumple zones and anti-lock brakes and all the other and people who didn't know would see a car catch fire every once in a while and say, that's a death trap, I am not ever getting in a car. They'd see a Ford Pinto, right? That's the situation right now, where we have Ford Pintos from 5, 6 years ago still on the road, but things have changed drastically. Those are not what is being built now. Those cannot, by law or by UL standards that are necessary for insurance, be built now. So those declining rates are, the fires that remain are almost all the old battery technologies. Why should we take any risk at all? Why, if there's something that's new and it can catch fire, why should we do that? This is my Central Hudson bill, right? You all know, I think, there are 2 main components on it. There's the delivery service charge. That is the cost of maintaining the electric grid, the substations and transformers and transmission wires and distribution wires. I spoke last time, batteries allow us to make the most of that existing infrastructure. Without batteries, the growth in demand for electricity will increase the price of that component of our bill up and up and up, as it is happening around the country. The second component is the electric supply charge. That's the actual cost of the electrons that we generate. Some electrons are a lot cheaper than others. And in particular, the person who spoke earlier was right. We get very little of our energy from solar right now. But we get a lot of our energy from hydropower and wind power and nuclear power from upstate New York that comes over the transmission lines in the nighttime when those transmission lines have capacity. In the daytime, they do not have capacity, and so we have to buy much more expensive gas-powered power, and expensive and polluting. It contributes to the asthma that we have in the Hudson Valley, right? So this allows us to get that cheaper electricity. The
We
last
do
thing.
have, okay, because
Okay,
we have a
I'm-
couple
I'm
more
just
people who
about done.
want to
I'm going to
speak.
show you
so-
one more picture.
Okay.
This is a picture of where batteries are going in across the US. And you'll see they're all over the place, but they're in two main places way more than anyone else. California started because they had environmental reasons. They wanted clean air, they cared about climate change. But you know who has surpassed California, who has more batteries? Texas, and it's growing faster. Texas does not have any environmental regulations, any policies pushing batteries. What they have is the most market-based electricity system in the country. And people are building batteries in Texas like wildfire because it saves customers money. And the way the electricity market in Texas is structured is if you can buy your power, you can choose a power producer that owns batteries, and you will get a lower rate. And that's just the market working out, right? This is not a thing, this is not an ideological thing, it saves us money, right? We all have these electric bills, and they are going to go up and up and up. And the responsible thing to do is to do what we can to put a lid on that by allowing us to modernize the grid. That's what batteries are. You can't do it without batteries. They are essential for that.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much.
I have one question for Jeff. Is it Jeff? Hi.
Yes.
Could you send me or the entire
Absolutely.
board
Yep.
the first two charts? I'm interested in the
100%.
source and the data and your last chart.
Happily. And I meant to mention, if anyone in the community, not just board members, would like this information or would like to talk about it more, because I was rushing, I would be very happy to talk through these issues as best I can and share resources, not just with board members, but with anyone in the community who would like to understand and know more about this.
The materials that you share with us, we can post so that people can
You
get
can
them.
just email
Okay.
them to me, they're very.
And email them to me.
All right, great.
I will
Yeah.
do that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think we have anyone else in the room that I saw to speak on this issue, but there's two folks online. Doreen, welcome.
Thank you. And I'm not going to identify myself because, as the town clerk said, under the open meetings law, people are not required to give their name or their address, and I'd be happy to send you opinions from the Committee on Open Government. But getting back to the matter at hand, I am in favor of extending the moratorium. And one of the things I'd like to say is that we heard the representative from TCE say how safe these plants are. And I would like to see them, if they're that sure, I'd like to see them commit to paying any expenses, and maybe they already do this, that might be incurred by any of the local fire departments for overtime costs associated with fighting these fires. Because as the town board knows, people in the Arlington Fire District, the Arlington Fire District taxes are the biggest portion of their property tax bill. So in AFD, each year has exceeded, for the last number of years, has exceeded their overtime budget. And I've also said this before, I think that the code that the town is working on should specifically say in there for any of these storage projects that they should be required to pay any cost associated with the fire districts, not just the training, but the cost of fighting the fires. If it's 5 days they need to be there on overtime. And again, maybe they've committed to do this. Maybe it's in the code. I have not seen the latest version, but I think that is cost is a big factor. We've heard a lot of people talking about cost of their electric. Well, cost from incurred by fire districts to fight these fires could be substantial. And as far as health concerns and asthma, you're right, the people have talked about that. There are a lot of cases of asthma across the country, maybe in New York State. Poughkeepsie is number 18, or across the country, I'm not sure what that number was. But we also have the Dutchess County incinerator here. So if you're worried about asthma, that's someplace else to focus your attention. But I am in favor of extending the moratorium, and I hope that the code is modified and that there are conditions put on companies so that they will pay for any expenses incurred. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I was going to say, Doreen, at the meeting we had at the Arlington Firehouse, and the representative, Ms. Lou, was there, we did request that. And we also requested training, and we've gotten nothing back from the company yet. So we're still waiting. But thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, our last speaker, I think, on this, Joshua, welcome.
Hi, I'm Joshua Tan, Ward 6. I'm speaking today in favor of lifting the moratorium. I want to make it clear that the issue at hand isn't whether we install the batteries, isn't whether we upgrade the transmission of electricity in our community, which I think is very important, but whether we as a town are forbidding any installation of this or any project to go forward at all. The moratorium, once lifted, will allow for future study, will allow for proposals to go forward. It won't automatically cause this to happen. So I would really encourage the board to lift the moratorium in good faith so that we can move forward and get the benefits that we all agree we will be able to get when a responsible code is enforced and we have a battery system that will prevent a lot of the issues that we know will be coming with the future of electricity coming into our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no other speakers, then I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then we face a decision now as a board about whether or not to continue the moratorium. It is my understanding, and we might again have some help from legal counsel here, that we have not changed the town code yet. We did not adopt code. We could do so. We actually have to do so while the moratorium is in place. Otherwise, if we lift the moratorium, we do so without having made changes to our code. So I think we need to extend the moratorium, but that does not prevent us from moving forward with looking at code changes. And as I said at the last meeting, I think we ought to look at those code changes very carefully. If in fact we are proposing code that requires a company, requires fire department approval for any specific project, or if we are specifying the types of batteries that may or may not be included, I think we all need to take a really close look at what was proposed and see whether we agree or disagree with that proposal. I also wanted to say that the Dutchess County, so there's been a lot of discussion about neighboring fire districts needing to provide mutual aid. And the Dutchess County Mayors and Supervisors Association has committed for its June meeting to having a discussion on BESS, inviting all towns who are interested, not only town supervisors or board members, but also fire district leaders, and having this be a broader conversation than just this town. There are 4 or 5 towns wrestling with this now, and it can be helpful for people to share information and learn together. So that will be happening in June. So we are moving forward with continuing to kind of educate and find out what we can figure out.
Where that'll be held?
I don't have a date or a place yet, but we'll start working on it. I got a commitment to do it last night, so we're not quite with the details yet, but we'll work on it. So we'll continue working on that.
Rebecca, can I just ask for you to clarify again? Did I hear properly that if we get rid of the moratorium, we can't do that until we have code?
So you can vote tonight to continue the moratorium or not. If you don't, then the moratorium will expire and you'll be without any code governing how BESS installations would be reviewed. If you want to put in new regulations, it would be advisable to keep the moratorium in place until you do adopt those regulations, so that we don't have a period of time where there aren't any regulations.
Well, my question is, if the town board, if we all, come to a majority vote that we are going to continue the moratorium, then no one would touch the code, because there'd be no reason to create a code.
You can only have a moratorium temporarily while you're looking into code changes. You can't just extend it indefinitely.
Okay.
So this moratorium law would extend the moratorium for 6 more months, and you can lift it at any time. So you could start tomorrow on the new law, and once it's adopted, you could lift the moratorium.
So just a clarification, we can, if we do vote to extend it, it would be for 6 months.
It's for 6 months.
But we could,
or less.
We could call it early.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's 6 months with an optional additional 6-month extension. But
Right.
yes, you could end it early.
And if I'm hearing, what I'm hearing is that I don't think it's wise for us to just end the moratorium without any code in place. But that, extending the moratorium also doesn't mean that we just sort of go away and say, okay, we aren't gonna think about this for 6 more months. We will try to make a plan to move forward and make a decision, because the moratorium is not, we've extended it, and we can't keep doing that.
Right.
Okay? Any other discussion?
Is it up to 6 or it has to be a minimum of 6?
It's up to 6, but as Bill said, we can call it early. In other words, if we next month were comfortable with the code, we could adopt code, and then we could revisit and lift the moratorium.
Right, but I think that supervisor's very, reasonable, as you stated, to wait for the county's input, to see what, if there's any emergency planning situations, and what the fire department will say. So once we have that information, then we can be a little more educated with how we might change our code and then move it forward.
We'll see,
Okay.
we'll talk about a timeline.
Yeah.
Good, okay, any other discussion? Okay, then, all those in favor of extending the moratorium, would vote yes to extend the moratorium, no to end the moratorium, okay? All those in favor of extending the moratorium for up to 6 months?
the public hearing, but we didn't really move the resolution, so.
Oh, we didn't, we closed the hearing, but we haven't moved the resolution yet.
Go ahead, Barb.
You wanna do that? Great.
Sure. At the January 2020,
You don't have
sorry.
to read the whole thing, but you can summarize.
Okay, so make a motion to,
Adopt the law.
adopt the law to continue a temporary townwide moratorium.
Second.
So moved.
All right, good, okay. All those in favor of adopting the law?
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? All right,
No.
then Barb, okay, all
I'm
right.
opposed to it, but, seeing as we don't have a code, I understand, but I just want to put my voice out there.
Okay,
That's fine.
fine, so good.
I also
So-
wanted to limit the moratorium extension to a shorter time so that
Well-
we'll have incentive to prepare.
Do you
the
want to
code.
back up and amend the moratorium, the proposed law?
Why
Can
would
we do
make
that?
Why would we want to make it shorter if we haven't had the training yet? We don't know who's going to pay for the dam. You live in the Arlington district.
Wait.
Let me, I can speak.
I know, but
I can speak, thank you.
If
Okay.
Ryan is gonna make an amendment, we should formally put that amendment on the table in order to discuss it.
Okay.
That's my question. If Ryan would like to put that amendment on the table, then, and if it has a second, then we should definitely discuss it, and Mike, you will have the floor first.
Yeah, I'd like to shorten the moratorium so we're incentivized to work on the code in a much shorter time,
Are you gonna make that as an amendment?
as an amendment, yes.
Is there anyone who wishes to second that amendment?
Don't you have to give a
Wait,
specific
hold on,
number of
hold
months?
on.
I second
hold
it.
on. Okay, so the amendment has a second. Okay, now we're discussing whether to amend to shorten the length of the moratorium. Mike?
Okay. This is in the Arlington Fire District. Bill and I sit on the Fire Safety Committee. We meet with Arlington. They've had zero training. You've heard from Doreen, their taxes are already outstandingly high. So we have training coming up in June. The company that said they were gonna give us training has given us nothing to date. So we could have one training here, and hey, great, that's June. How many more months is that away? Does that give us time to change our code? Does that give us time to really go through? We could always do this. I'm not saying we couldn't make it happen, but to lessen it puts an awful lot of pressure on our fire staff to try to get to this training. We do have to train our other fire districts in the local area. Do you know how hard that is to get manpower free for these trainings?
So we could differ on the amount of time it
But
would
if you just
take.
leave it at 6 and we make it happen, at least we give ourselves that time.
Yeah, we could.
But if you make it 4 months, that's
Yeah.
making it really hard, and it's gonna put a lot of pressure on our fire districts
I
to get
understand, but
manpower.
we could revisit that if.
But if you leave it
in
at 6,
fact-
we could get the training, and we could get the training from June. We don't know the exact date, we don't know when it's gonna be, how many people could fit in a building at the same time. We have a lot of municipalities that are first responders that are gonna be responding here reciprocally. You're putting a lot of
It's a
pressure on
proposed-
everybody.
it's a
So I'd like,
proposed amendment,
I'd
so
just like to
we can
add a
vote.
clarification here. I believe that the proposed code that was drafted specifies that training is site-specific. And that in the case of any specific BES system being proposed, the fire department has to approve it, and the company has to pay for the training before it can be approved. So perhaps starting by reading the proposed draft code would get us all in the same place. And I think we should do that in the next couple of months. And I don't think that extending the moratorium, Ryan, with respect, I think we should go ahead and not complicate this with changing the length of the moratorium, but I do think what I'm hearing is that people would like to move with dispatch, and I think we can do so by all reading the proposed code and deciding if we want any changes to it, and having that conversation and deciding, we can do that, we can do that at the next meeting. We can start working on the code itself to see if we can adopt that, and that's the essential piece we need to do in order to then end the moratorium.
Yeah, I mean, as we said before, keeping it at 6 months gives us the opportunity to call it early.
Yes.
Should we have the information? And we're not gonna know, really by what you had said, until June, the county's perspective on all that, and that is 3 months.
It's not, I just want to be clear, it's not the county's perspective. It is a discussion for a number of different fire departments and towns that are interested.
I see.
But I'm not sure we need to wait till June if there's, to look at the proposed code again.
No.
I think we sort of got away from from looking at the specifics of what was proposed, and coming back to that might help us out.
I just
So-
want to put out an analogy, like, I think we should move forward quickly. I mean, we keep thinking that, I think some people on the board maybe think the moratorium's just gonna, all of a sudden it will go away. But here's the analogy. If your child is 12 years old, you don't expect them to get driver's training until they get their permit, and that happens at 16. So I think we have to do the permit, the code first, and then you will get the training for the fire departments. Because they're not gonna put money into training if the town would turn around and say, no, we're not doing the best.
So Ryan, if we're gonna vote on your amendment now, is it okay if I vote against your amendment, but promise to bring the code forward next month so we can start talking about it? Is that a good
That's
compromise?
fine. No
Okay.
pressure, I just wanted to incentivize.
I appreciate it. Well, I think you
Yeah, and
did
also-
that worked.
Okay.
Also, I'd like to mention to the code committee, this is the topic for the committee, which is the last Wednesday in the month. So they're gonna be discussing it too.
Okay.
Okay, I think they've already brought forward a proposed code, but they could revisit it again. Also, I could ask Mike Welty and the code committee to revisit and see if, in light of the rapidly changing technology, there's anything we'd want to do differently, okay?
Can they
So-
bring it to a workshop meeting too, maybe in April or,
We
That-
certainly
so you could-
can.
That would actually be a good idea, because then we could interact with
Because
them
then you could
directly.
have it in front of you and talk about it?
I'll talk with Mike tomorrow and see whether we could do that next Wednesday or whether we could do it in April. We'll see what we can do. They may want to discuss it among themselves first. We need first to vote on Ryan's amendment, proposed amendment. Is everybody ready for that vote?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of amending to shorten the time of the moratorium?
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay? Okay. So the amendment fails, 1, 2, 6, yep. So now we are voting on the moratorium itself, right?
To extend.
To extend, on the law to extend.
Oh, I thought we did that, but we had to go back.
We almost did. We got really close, and then we ended up getting sidetracked, but we'll go back to voting now, okay? All those in favor of adopting the law to extend the moratorium for 6 months, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it passes by a vote of 5 to 2. All right, and I will go with dispatch and see if I can talk with Mike Welty and work on bringing the code forward so we can all look at that code together, okay? All right. Resolution, yes, Ann.
Resolution 3. This is just a public hearing, open the
This is
public
public,
hearing.
yeah.
This public hearing has to do with the stormwater annual report and the draft stormwater management plan prepared by the Town of Poughkeepsie Stormwater Program Coordinator. Does anybody have any comments on that?
Okay, so there's a second to opening the public
Oh, yes,
hearing?
second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 7 to 0, the public hearing is open. Is there anyone who wants to speak on the MS4 Stormwater Annual Report, draft report? Doreen, welcome, again.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I've been commenting on the stormwater report for probably 20 years. I will be likely submitting written comments, but I do want to make a few comments tonight since it is the public hearing. First of all, I'd like to thank the town clerk for helping me out on this. The resolution that the board approved at the February 19th meeting stated that the draft stormwater report was going to be filed with the town clerk and posted on the town's website for review on February 28th. And I looked for it in the morning, it wasn't there. I looked for it in mid-afternoon, it still wasn't posted. I contacted the town clerk, and she didn't have the report yet, but she investigated it and sent it to me shortly before the close of business day at 4 p.m. So, you know, in my opinion, that should have been posted earlier per the resolution. Also, that there's a new report format this year, and it seems like many of the questions regarding actions taken by the town are answered no, and the explanation for that was that they'll be completed in subsequent years. So it makes it hard for the public to evaluate any actions, if any, that had been taken by the town. So I don't know if that's just because, again, that it's a new format, but it differs and it makes it harder to participate. Then the other thing is that there's a stormwater listserv, and I'm a stakeholder on that listserv, and I did not receive an email notifying me that the draft stormwater report was available for review and that public hearing would be held tonight. And yes, I was at the February 19th meeting, but still, if it says in there, in the report, that the email listserv is being used as a method to inform the public, well, then it should be used. And if you're not using it, then you should not say it in the meeting. I'm sorry, in the report. And then the last thing is that it also said in the report that there had been a presentation of the draft annual report. And as of today, I'm not aware of any such presentation that was made. It wasn't made at the last meeting, and it wasn't made tonight, and I don't see it on the agenda. So, you know, there are some issues, and I will likely be submitting written comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on the MS4 stormwater report? We'll look into Doreen's questions about public notification. I wanted to say two things. First of all, I wanted to thank the town engineering team, Bobby Bozek. Those of you who've looked at it, the report is 1,170 pages long. Much of that is background and appendices, but still, it's an enormous amount to put together. New York State has upped the requirements for stormwater management, and that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of things over a multi-year process here where we're saying it's gonna happen over the next few years. It's a lot. And I also wanted to thank the Dutchess County MS4 Coordinating Committee. Parts of what need to be done are public education and outreach, and they really do help the town a great deal in being able to do that collaboratively. So I just wanted to thank the folks who do this. It's a big job. So, anybody else want to speak? All right. We needed to close the public hearing.
Yes.
All those in favor of closing the, I move to close the public hearing. Second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the passes 7-0. All right, and then we have a vote on adopting or accepting the draft stormwater annual report and management plan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the report? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0. I wanted to say that the report is online. It's in the planning section of the town website. So if you're looking, anybody's looking for it, it's under planning. Okay?
Excuse me, Supervisor, just a question. How will we extend the public review and comment through March 14th? Where are we gonna allow emails and?
I believe people are invited to send written and oral comments through the town clerk. Is that right?
Yeah, and, well, I think she does send it to the town clerk, and I think it states in there what to do.
Okay.
States it in the report.
It's in the report.
It's in the
Okay,
report. Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Great, thank you as well. Okay, that brings us to the end of our 3 public hearings. I wanted to make 2 really quick announcements here, which is of 2 grants that were received. The first is that Hudson River Housing has received a $6 million state grant for +1 ADU housing, and 8 towns, residents in 8 towns who are income eligible will be able to apply for a portion of those funds to create accessory dwelling units. And we are one of the 8 towns. So really excited to partner with Hudson River Housing on this. and look forward to being able to advertise to town residents that they could apply to create an accessory dwelling unit in their, on their property, and get some support for doing that. The second is that we received a Dutchess County Youth Programs grant actually, to be technically correct, the Kingston YMCA received the grant, and they are gonna work with the town on a youth basketball league this summer. So we have a 6-week free youth basketball league for about 100 kids, ages 7 to 15. It will be centered on Red Oaks Mill Park, and we'll have money to help with coaches and equipment. Some of that money will come to the town for the use of our facilities. So I'm really excited about that, and really thank Nate Smith and the rec department, and also the Kingston YMCA, Ulster County YMCA, for partnering with us on this. I think it's gonna be a really great program to provide a 6-week basketball league. Okay, we then are now, let me go over the agenda briefly. We did the 3 public hearings. We are going to be discussing a short-term rental at 6 Conifer Court. I am recused on what's on the agenda as item number 5, but Ann Shershin withdrew this yesterday for more research by our new Department of Building head, who is researching the background for some of these TCOs. We are voting on securing an undertaking for site restoration at Locust Grove Crossings. We are setting the date for a public hearing on the good cause eviction law that is proposed. We are voting on releasing a bond that the Poughkeepsie Galleria has had with the town for a long time. We are voting on appointing 2 people to the Board of Ethics. We are voting on a quitclaim deed for 8 Railroad Avenue. We are voting on approving field use agreements for the baseball and the softball leagues. We're voting on a 911 private road name change for Lashley Lane. We are voting on setting a date for a public hearing on the possibility of the town clerk having a 4-year rather than a 2-year term. We are voting on limits on short-term rentals, the number of short-term rentals in the town. We are voting to appoint a sewer maintenance mechanic and a part-time fire inspector, and then we are doing some notifications from the town clerk. We also have a special consent item at the end of the day on correcting sewer billing for properties over at Hudson Heritage. Okay, so right now we open public comment for anyone who's here and who wants to speak on any of those items on the regular agenda. This will in fact be limited to 3 minutes or thereabouts. If anyone here would like to speak on any of the items on tonight's agenda, we'll start with the folks who are in the room, and then we'll move to the folks on Zoom. So, welcome. If you'd like to come forward, you're invited to let us know your name and your address. That's up to you.
Thank you. Hello, Town Board. My name is Rosemary. Don't worry, I Googled it. I am in Ward 3, and I have been a resident of the town of Poughkeepsie since 2017. I am a lifelong renter and a current tenant in Poughkeepsie. For a large portion of my life, my mother was the sole provider and struggled to make ends meet on her working class wages. Since I was young, we have faced housing instability, rent increases we didn't know how to pay, and even unfair evictions that have left us living out of family basements, or in the worst case, we were homeless. Today, I am exceptionally privileged to be in a stable housing situation, something that I'm thankful for every day. But I look around at my community and I see, sadly, so many stories like my own growing up. Because stories like my family's aren't uncommon. People are struggling to make ends meet, living in fear of their next rent increase or eviction. My neighbors are being priced out of their homes that they've lived in their entire lives. And as costs of living increase across the board, not to mention my Central Hudson bill, Poughkeepsie is becoming a completely unaffordable place to live, and something must be done to address this crisis. I love this community. I've gone to school here. I've fallen in love here. I've made my career here. I plan to get married here and live here for years to come. But this kind of life is only possible for my neighbors if renters can afford to stay here. And something needs to be done now to keep our neighbors in their homes. And we are in an exceptionally fortunate position now that the state government has given us a way to opt into monumental tenant protections, because passing good cause legislation is a way to accomplish what we need. Good cause lays out a framework for ensuring that evictions are not unjustified, protecting our neighbors from being forced from their homes. These are the most common sense and basic renter protections that we owe to the tenants in our community. And I am sure that you will hear a lot of concerns from landlords who are against this legislation. But the simple fact is that good landlords are already abiding by what is in good cause. If you're a good landlord, if you aren't raising rents to unreasonable amounts or evicting people for unjust reasons, you will not be hurt by these simple protections for your tenants. So the town of Poughkeepsie has an opportunity to lead the way in protecting renters and keeping our communities together. I am asking you to act quickly, to fight for Poughkeepsie, keep our neighbors in their homes, and set the public hearing to opt into good cause. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have to be, that was very impressive. You had 3 minutes and you used 2 minutes and 58 seconds. That's pretty good.
Just the time to,
There you go. All right. Who else in the room would like to speak to any of the items on the agenda tonight? Anyone else? Yes, you're welcome to come forward.
It has an alarm. Call Tim.
I don't know why it's doing that.
Oh, sorry.
There-
Oh, wait.
It's a very informal board here, so.
do you have any blues?
That's not helping.
It sounds good.
Okay.
Am I on?
Stop
Use our
reset.
phones.
You should speak, and I'm gonna use my watch.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay. My
Hello, everyone.
apologies.
Hi. My name is Alexandria Sasso, and I also Googled it. I'm in Ward 3. I'm here with For the Many. In last year's New York State budget, the town of Poughkeepsie was given the power to pass good cause eviction without the fear of a landlord lawsuit. 1/3 of town of Poughkeepsie households are renters. Good cause would protect them if they are paying their rent and following their lease. They would be protected from eviction without cause and from rent increases above 10% of the consumer price index plus 5%, whichever is lower. If a landlord tries to raise rent by an illegal amount, then the tenant would be able to go to court and ask the judge to reverse the rent increase. This would help tenants afford to stay in Poughkeepsie. Good cause does not hurt the housing supply. It only applies to units built before 2009. New Jersey has had good cause for decades and has built more housing than New York. The cities of Poughkeepsie, Albany, Ithaca, Kingston, Hudson, Newburgh, Beacon, and Rochester have already passed good cause. So is the town of Fishkill and the villages of New Paltz, Nyack, Croton-on-Hudson, and Catskill. The town of Poughkeepsie should be next. Good cause is not only for big cities. 11 out of 14 municipalities that have passed good cause have less people than the town of Poughkeepsie. For the strongest good cause law possible, we need the town board to define a small landlord as someone who owns no more than one rental unit. This will prevent a potential LLC loophole where corporate landlords could create multiple LLCs in order to get around the law. Also, please set the high rent exemption at 345% of fair market rent to protect the maximum number of tenants possible while still exempting high rent luxury apartments as required by the state. If we do not take action now, the housing crisis will get worse. As a renter, I know firsthand how important good cause is. I had difficulty finding affordable housing when I moved to Dutchess County in 2021. I had to move again in 2022 as my landlord decided to end my lease with a couple months' notice. I was afraid I would have to move out of Dutchess County, a county I've grown to love so much, due to the lack of affordable housing. But I was lucky enough to be selected. Is that the timer?
No, not yet.
Oh, I'm
We've got
hearing
another
things.
half a minute.
Okay, I was lucky enough to be selected to rent a one-bedroom apartment. I was told I was one of 30 applicants. We at For the Many would like the town board to schedule a public hearing on good cause eviction on Wednesday, April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, who else, who's here in the room would like to speak? Welcome, come forward.
Hello, my name is Liliana. I live in Ward 3, and I've been a resident of the town of Poughkeepsie for about 8 years, and I've come to be lucky enough to call it my home. And tonight, I would like to urge you emphatically to opt into New York State's good cause eviction law. And as you have heard, and probably will hear a lot of from people throughout this public process, abuses of eviction and skyrocketing rents are deeply hurting our community and making our community weaker and our future more unstable. The good cause eviction law protects renters and landlords alike from abuse by ensuring compliance to very common sense protections for renters, and this provides our town with the ability to hold unscrupulous landlords accountable who are raising rents beyond reason and ignoring the well-being of our residents and community in order to extract even more money than they could possibly need. Good cause is not about hurting law-abiding landlords who are doing nothing wrong, and does not change the ability to rightfully evict tenants who are breaking their lease. Protecting our community from price gouging is a vital part of continuing to ensure that our community has a sustainable future that protects all of us equally. Again, I urge you emphatically to vote in favor of opting into New York State's good cause eviction law in order to protect our community and our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Who else in the room would like to speak? Yes, if you'd like to come forward, welcome.
Hello, my name is Samuel and I'm in Ward 2. I am also here with For the Many. I'm here with For the Many. In last year's New York State budget, I'm just also going to set my watch real quick, hang on. Okay. In last year's New York State budget, the town of Poughkeepsie was given the power to pass good cause eviction without the fear of a landlord lawsuit. 1/3 of the town of Poughkeepsie's households are renters. Good cause would protect them if they were paying their rent and following their lease. They would be protected from eviction without cause and from rent increases above 10% or the consumer price index plus 5%, whichever of those is lower. If a landlord tries to raise rent by an illegal amount, then the tenant would be able to go to court and ask the judge to reverse the increase. This would help tenants to afford to stay in Poughkeepsie. Good cause does not hurt the housing supply. It only applies to units built before 2009. New Jersey has had good cause for decades and has built more housing than New York. The cities of Poughkeepsie, Albany, Ithaca, Kingston, Hudson, Newburgh, Beacon, and Rochester have already passed good cause. So has the town of Fishkill and the villages of New Paltz, Nyack, Croton-on-Hudson, and Catskill. The town of Poughkeepsie should be next. For the strongest good cause law possible, we need the town board to define a small landlord as someone who owns no more than one rental unit. This will prevent a potential LLC loophole where corporate landlords could create multiple LLCs in order to get around the law. Also, please set the high rent exemption at 345% of fair market rent to protect the maximum number of tenants possible. If we do not take action now, the housing crisis will get worse. I have worked extensively with Christ Episcopal Church Poughkeepsie and have seen the rapid rise of people who are unhoused or whose housing is insecure as the cost of living rises and supports for living fall. Last year, Dutchess County closed the pods on North Hamilton Street, which eliminated the only place for people with no home to go at night. And emergency community solutions, such as the Code Blue shelter run by my church, are struggling to meet their need for shelter, leaving many people on the streets, which is both a humanitarian crisis for those affected, but also for residents of Poughkeepsie who are unhoused, but are made to feel unsafe by the increase of people on the street. The increase in crime by a surge of people with no shelter whose daily experiences are fear, hunger, and harassment make expenses for local businesses and drive away patrons, raising the cost of goods, which is pushed onto consumers, the tenants of Poughkeepsie, who then suffer more housing instability. Just to be clear, creating more housing instability and more unhoused people is both terrible for human people and for businesses. It is vitally important for us to curtail this by giving supports for residents of Poughkeepsie to live responsibly and affordable wherever possible. I was also unhoused for 6 months in 2022 due to these issues, as well as living with a disability. We'd like the town board to schedule a public hearing on good cause eviction as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Thank you for sharing your experiences. If there's anyone else in the room, then I'm going to turn to Jessica Zalen, who is online. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. Pardon me, Jessica. There's someone else here who's going to speak. Welcome. Come forward.
Good evening to the town board. My name is Allie Dettinger. I do not live in the town of Poughkeepsie, but I am a staff attorney with the Hudson Valley Justice Center, and I represent your constituents here where our office is here in the town court quite frequently, representing tenants facing eviction. And something I'm particularly passionate about as a housing attorney is tenants living in good conditions. I helped pass the law that allows tenants to bring affirmative repair cases and ask the court to say, the judge can say, you must repair this condition. But a lot of tenants are really scared to use that law because they're worried that their rent is going to get doubled, or they're worried that their lease is going to get terminated. And I want to quick tell about 3 of my clients who have had some repair issues. And the first one was up in the lower part of Ulster County, and he did not have electricity for a month. There was a fire a few units over, and it knocked out the entire string. And I filed a lawsuit on his behalf, and he's been restored to his home, and we were able to get a little bit of a rent abatement, which was really great. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I think about him at night, because he doesn't have any protections where he lives, and it's unlikely that there is a town board that's going to opt in, and that's just the reality that he's going to live with. And I represented another tenant in Eastern Dutchess who had withheld her rent money, as what we think of happened. She had saved it because her bathroom was absolutely infested with what was clearly mold. She had gotten a mold report done. The landlord refused to address it, brought her to court for non-payment, and we counterclaimed. We did everything under the sun to try and save that tenancy, and the tenant still ended up having to move despite doing everything that the media tells you that even as attorneys we say, you put the money aside, we bring these claims for repairs, and there was no good cause in either of these jurisdictions. But I want to tell you about another client that I recently also sued their landlord, who was in the city of Poughkeepsie, just minutes away from here. And this is an immigrant, a single mother, working mother with several kids at home, and she did not have heat and hot water in her apartment from December 11th through January 10th. Can you imagine what that family would have done? Her son is in the military and came home to see her and could not stay at the house because he couldn't risk getting sick. She sent her kids down to live in New York City for the Christmas week because they could not be in the house. But we brought that suit without fear that her lease was going to be terminated and without fear that her rent was going to be doubled, because I know that she's safe. And it was a hard conversation to have with her that this is the right step to make, and I feel that because of the good cause eviction law. And I understand this board is considering opting in, and I would just strongly encourage you to see the successes that tenants are having using this law in other parts of our region, but also just other parts of our state as well. And it is making an absolute difference for tenants that are just trying to do the right thing, pay their rent, live in good conditions. The good cause law, I like to say, helps a good tenant that is doing all the right things have a little bit of leverage with a bad landlord that maybe isn't really doing all the right things. And I know it's scary for a lot of landlords. It feels like more regulation, but the reality is if you actually look at all the reasons a landlord can terminate a tenancy or can raise rent even above the threshold that's been set, the legislature has really thought through every single reasoning that's there. And I see a lot of cases where the tenant is covered by good cause, but it doesn't apply because it can't help you if you haven't paid rent in a year. So thank you for your time.
I have a question for you.
Answer any questions.
You referenced that you are in our court in the town.
Yes.
But you didn't give us a specific case in the town. Could you give me at least one case in the town?
I do actually. And my supervisor Ben Service is here as well, and he actually, one of our interns who lives here in the town of Poughkeepsie, went through and pulled cases. That actually the very first tenant I represented in the town of Poughkeepsie had some repair issues and was a little bit behind on rent, was very frustrated with the repair issues and tried to withhold the rent, thinking maybe it would get the landlord's attention. Her wall, the pictures, I was shocked, was like coming apart. But we didn't really have a whole lot of remedies to be able to get that fixed because there's no good cause eviction. So it was actually the very first tenant, and we we ended up making a move-out deal because the odds that the repairs were gonna get made were very low, and she moved. She doesn't live in Poughkeepsie anymore.
I know you probably can't get into specifics, and I don't want to mention names, but was this an apartment complex, or was this a single
This was a
building,
complex.
a home? Okay.
Yep. But, and like I said, our office is more than happy to dialogue about how we are seeing this law working, what it's doing, what it's not doing. I'm happy to linger and leave my card.
Great,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much. Thank you. Yes, welcome.
So I'm Ben Surface, I'm Ally's supervisor. I'm the supervising attorney for the Poughkeepsie office of the Hudson Valley Justice Center. And I'm following up on Ally's testimony with specific examples from the town of Poughkeepsie. So, so we have a number of examples we could have. I've put together written testimony here. I'm happy to have passed up.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be helpful. So then after the 3 minutes, we can look at the detail. I
Yes.
appreciate that.
So I just wanted to highlight a couple things that I think often get kind of misrepresented about this law. I was in Pleasant Valley on Monday talking to their town board. I was in the city of Middletown yesterday talking to their city council. I spent a lot of time in rooms where landlords are expressing their concerns, and I think they have some valid ones, but I think often they're concerns that are not based in what the law actually does. So what we hear a lot is landlords are worried, well, what is this going to mean if I need to make repairs and I have costs and I want to upkeep my building, but it's expensive to do that? What this law says is that if a landlord legitimately has expenses that they need to outlay in order to maintain their property, they can actually go above the reasonable rent increase number as long as they are prepared to show what those costs were, right? If you have to put in a $20,000 new HVAC system and you have the receipts, you can show that you did that work, and maybe you need to increase the rent by 20% in order to offset that cost. This law allows that to happen. The other thing about this law that landlords often talk about is that they're somehow going to be stuck with tenants for life, that this is somehow perpetual, lifelong tenancies. So, first of all, the list of reasons a tenant can still be evicted is longer than the list of protections that tenants have. The legislature has, in our view, done a lot to water down the strength of this bill. There are a number of exceptions to the good cause protection that apply to owner-occupied units. But the primary thing that I want to point out that landlords often either obfuscate or don't understand is that if they want to sell, if they want to demolish and rebuild, if they want to move in themselves, all of those are reasons that a landlord can still terminate a tenancy. When it comes to selling the property, if it's a single-family home, they want to sell it to somebody who's going to live there, all the landlord has to do is say, I'm no longer renting this building to anyone. They can't say, I'm not going to rent it to this tenant specifically, I want a different tenant, but if they don't want to be renting that building anymore, they can terminate the tenancy, and then they can sell the property. So I raise these issues not because I think landlords are cynical in their concerns. I think they have concerns that are sometimes based on not having fully gone through the details of the law. Part of the service I hope to provide to town boards and city councils that I speak to is objective clarity on what the law does and does not do. This is powerful protection for good tenants and an incredibly light touch for good landlords. So that's why we support this, and I'll pass around these specific examples from town
Thank
Poughkeepsie.
you. And that would be great if you can share those with us, because that's always helpful to know what's going on in the town itself. All right? Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hello, Supervisor Edwards and Town Board. My name is Daniel Latona. I live in the city of Poughkeepsie on College Avenue across the street from the town. In my role as political coordinator at For the Many and previously as co-chair of the Ulster Duchess Working Families Party, I knocked many doors in the town and got to know many of your constituents. The top issue they mention is the cost of housing. In last year's state budget, the town of Poughkeepsie was given the power to pass good cause eviction without the fear of a landlord lawsuit. 1/3 of town households are renters. Good cause would protect them if they're paying their rent and following the lease. They would be protected from eviction without cause and from rent increases above 10% or the consumer price index plus 5%, whichever is lower. According to the state comptroller, homelessness more than doubled in New York between 2022 and 2024. His report lists Poughkeepsie/Dutchess County as having an 11% increase in homelessness and over 700 homeless people. We need more housing, which good cause does not prevent, but we also need tenant protections like good cause to keep people in their homes. Nationally, President Musk and Vice President Donald Trump are determined to defund the Department of Housing and Urban Development and other vital housing programs. States and municipalities are going to get less federal money for building housing, rental vouchers, and helping homeless people. Passing good cause is something that is in your power to do to protect your constituents. Let me address some common misconceptions. Good cause is not rent control. I wish it was, but it isn't. Good cause does not prevent landlords from raising the rent. Landlords can raise the rent less than 10% or the consumer price index plus 5%, whichever is lower. If a landlord wants to raise the rent above that, then they have to demonstrate to a judge that they raised the rent that much because of increased costs such as taxes or maintenance. A reasonable landlord would compromise with their tenant and accept a lower increase rather than go to court. Good cause is not only for big cities. 11 out of 14 municipalities that have passed good cause have less people than this town. 1 town and 4 villages have passed good cause so far, and the town of Pleasant Valley is on its way to passing it very soon. Good cause will not hurt the housing supply. It only applies to units built before 2009. In the city of Poughkeepsie, there are multiple housing developments being considered. No one canceled their project because the council passed good cause. That would be ridiculous, since good cause doesn't even apply to new buildings. Good cause does not apply to truly small landlords. If a landlord owns only 1 rental unit or lives in their building with less than 11 units, then good cause does not apply. For the strongest good cause law possible, we need the town board to define a small landlord as someone who owns no more than 1 rental unit. This will prevent an LLC loophole where corporate landlords could create multiple LLCs in order to get around the law by disguising how many units they own. Remember, we don't have a publicly accessible LLC database. If you don't set a small landlord definition of 1, then the law is virtually unenforceable. That's why all 14 municipalities that have passed good cause set it at 1. Please set the high rent exemption at 345% of fair market rent to protect the maximum number of tenants possible while still exempting high rent luxury apartments as required by the state. 12 out of 14 municipalities that have passed good cause set the high rent exemption at 345%. The lower the percentage, the fewer tenants are protected. 245% is too low and will leave people out.
I think we're nearing 3 minutes.
Cool. Good cause is a common sense policy that costs the town no money while giving tenants a chance to stay in their homes. Please set a public hearing for Wednesday, April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else in the room who wanted to speak? All right. Oh, okay. What? Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yep, I live in town of Poughkeepsie. Like I've been renting out in a apartment complex for almost 13 years. I mean, the rent has been quite stable, and I was shocked. Like in the last my lease agreement, they increased by almost like 20%. And when I asked them, they couldn't give the answer. Oh, if you like it, or you just leave. I mean, that's what the indication I got. And in view of all the housing prices going up, so I thought of moving to looking for a house, a condo, or because I couldn't afford the rent every month. I mean, so when I went to the apartment office, they told me that if you want to go for a month-to-month lease, then they will further increase the rent by $150 a month. So that would overall increase my rent to like almost 32% per month, and that is again being so unaffordable. So I'm not sure, like even if I sign like a yearly lease, they don't allow you to break the lease. This thing, so I like to. They are telling me like you have to pay for the rest of the year. I mean, so I'm not sure like. Why this good cause was ever passed, because even if there is a law stating that you cannot increase the rent by 10% or something like that, why is this not applicable to every town of every county or throughout the New York State? I mean, so I would really appreciate like if you guys help and pass the good cause, so at least the rent will be stable. So that's what my request is.
Thank you very much. To answer your question, I believe that the state made it possible for municipalities to opt in, but it didn't apply to the whole state. So it's choice by each municipality. So yeah.
my curiosity is, if this is helping people, why not somebody pass it, be proactive and just pass it?
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it very much. It has to be done municipality by municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Ryan Alons. I live in Ward 5, I believe, on Myron. I've been in the Poughkeepsie area for about 6 years now. We were finally able to buy our home 2 years ago, and we love being in the Spockenkill area. The school's there. I have 2 daughters. It's awesome. And I'm here to speak for the many. In the last year's New York State budget, the town of Poughkeepsie was given the power to pass good cause eviction without fear of a landlord lawsuit. 1/3 of the town of Poughkeepsie households are renters. Not me, but I do care deeply about my neighbors. Good cause will protect them if they are paying their rent and following their lease. They will be protected from eviction without cause and from rent increases above 10%. The Consumer Price Index plus 5%, whichever is lower. If a landlord tries to raise the rent by an illegal amount, then the tenant will be able to go to court and ask the judge to reverse the rent increase. This will help tenants afford to stay in Poughkeepsie, which I want. I want more neighbors. I like my neighbors. I like the people around me. Good cause does not hurt the housing supply. It only applies to units built before 2009. New Jersey has had good cause for decades and has built more housing than New York, which I'm a little offended that they have beat us to that. We should be maybe, sticking it back to them. Anyway, the cities of Poughkeepsie, Albany, Ithaca, Kingston, Hudson, Newburgh, Beacon, and Rochester have already passed good cause. So has the town of Fishkill and the villages of New Paltz, Nyack, Croton-on-Hudson, and Catskill. The towns of Poughkeepsie should be next. For the strongest good cause law possible, we need the town board to define a small landlord as someone who owns no more than 1 rental unit. This will prevent a potential LLC loophole where corporate landlords could create multiple LLCs in order to get around the law. It's not good. Also, please set the high rent exemption at 345% of fair market rent to protect the maximum number of tenants possible. If we don't take action now, the housing crisis will get worse. My own personal experience with my landlord, when we bought our house, we gave our landlord 2 months notice that we were going to be moving out, which I believe is according to the law. I mean, you guys might be able to correct me, but he didn't take kindly to that and actually sued us on the way out. We lawyered up and managed to get any sort of punitive charges against us dropped. So I do feel like we need to do our best to protect our neighbors out there who are renters, because it's tough out there. And it's only going to get worse with the cuts to the housing department and challenges for funding for our most vulnerable neighbors to stay with a roof over their head. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else who's in the room who wanted to speak? If not, I'm going to go to Jessica Zellen, who is on Zoom and joining us on Zoom. Jessica, welcome.
Hi. Good evening, Supervisor and members of the Town Board. My name is Jessica Zalen. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader. I am appearing tonight on behalf of 8 Railroad Holdings, LLC, the owner of the property located at 8 Railroad Avenue. I'm here tonight in connection with this board's consideration of the quitclaim deed for that property. I'm just here to answer any questions that the board may have. So when you get to discussion on that point, I just wanted to make it known that I am here and available.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much for being here. And when we get there, we'll know that we can speak with you. I believe there's a board member who had a question for Mr. Surface, who spoke a little while ago.
Yes. Ben, I just had a question. Since this only applies to the buildings before 2009, in your experience, have any of the landlords in any of the areas you've represented decided to go condo and change the apartments from rentals to condominiums and sell them and then own the building and charge a commons fee.
So we have not yet seen that in any good cause jurisdictions. So to be candid, it's a new law, so we don't know if that's gonna be something they're gonna try in the future. I used to practice in Manhattan, which has much stricter rent regulations. And so we would sometimes see that in the context of rent stabilization, where buildings would go co-op to avoid rent stabilization laws, but we have not seen it and we have not heard of anybody thinking of doing that with good cause. I think because this isn't rent control, right, landlords still have, one, the cap on reasonable rent increases is fairly high, right? If you have a $2,000 a month rent, you can raise it $160 without, without anybody getting to make a peep. And so for most landlords, that's enough. So we just haven't seen landlords make that move yet. We could. Certainly they're right. This law would not prevent them from doing that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no one else to speak, then I move to return to regular session.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, 7-0. Okay, then we move on. And I'm not quite, I can't remember quite where we were, but it might be that you were, you number 4, so it's Mike, if you want to
So, yeah.
do the 6 Conifer Court.
Yep, so basically, this is an application, a special use permit application to approve or deny a short-term, an unhosted short-term rental at 6 Conifer Court in the town of Poughkeepsie. We've had public hearings on this in the past, and we had some neighbors come in and they were worried about parking. We had some concerns about the bedrooms, how many numbers, garbage. And we did get a number last time of someone who would be here locally, who we could call in case of an emergency or if we have a problem. And this actually has all the safeguards that we had asked for in here. And if there is a problem, that special use permit could be terminated. So I think.
And think someone needs to second it, right? You're saying so moved?
I gotta move it first.
Yep.
Just gave a little.
Okay.
And Sherson just seconded.
Okay, so Mike moved it and seconded it. And I'll just follow up from what Mike was saying is that one thing that was specifically requested was that the local representative of the owner have legal authority, power of attorney to evict someone if necessary, if there was a wild party going on, and that the renter needed to be removed for the short-term rental. And we did get that certification, so the local representative who lives in the city of Poughkeepsie has given her cell phone number and has power of attorney has been provided. And I know that Chrissy's been working also, the zoning department has been working with them on issues of garbage and making sure that the site is clean. So, any other comments?
The 3 conditions that I think the board asked for are at the bottom of the second page, so if anything needs to be edited there, we can.
Okay. That's good. The legal authority of the local agent, the house being limited to 4 bedrooms, and parking for the rental shall be provided on the property.
Mike and I agreed that they put a lot of work into this. Thank you very much for getting this up.
If there's no further discussion then, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, the resolution passes 6-1.
Then I think we withdrew resolution 5, so I'll go to 6. In connection with the planning board approval received by Locust Grove Crossings to allow construction of a 32-unit multifamily development in 4 buildings, 8 units per building, with associated parking and site improvements, Locust Grove has requested permission from the planning board to cut trees prior to signing of its site plan by the chair of the planning board. On February 20, 2025, the planning board granted such permission subject to some conditions, among them that Locust Grove enter into an agreement with the town to stabilize and restore the site if the project does not proceed, which agreement must be secured by an undertaking in the form of a letter of credit or cash deposit. The town engineer has indicated that $37,950 is a sufficient undertaking to guarantee the restoration required, and this amount has been reviewed and found acceptable by the Director of Municipal Development. The Supervisor and Director of Municipal Development are authorized to receive and execute the annexed secured undertaking for site restoration in substantially the form annexed. So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0.
Okay, Resolution 7, this is to set a public hearing for residential rentals, which is also good cause legislation, and it's to be set for April 2nd at 7 o'clock here in Town Hall, and that it needs to be posted in the Poughkeepsie Journal and distributed to surrounding counties as we always do. So moved.
Second. Okay, any discussion? This is to set the public hearing for a good cause eviction law on April the 2nd.
I'd like to make an amendment that we push this to the following voting meeting in April, just to give ample notification to people. We don't have a Poughkeepsie Journal any longer. I want to make sure that the landlords get a chance to get in here and tell us their side too.
So that would be the second meeting of April, to
Yeah.
provide 2 additional weeks.
I just think that's fair
Right.
to.
That would be April 16th.
notification.
Is that a motion? You're making that as an
Yes.
amendment? Okay. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
I'll speak to the amendment. I'm not sure I see a need for a delay. I feel like I talked with the Realtors Association some weeks back, and this has been under discussion for a while, so I'm not sure I see the need for postponement, but if other people do, the board can, obviously make the decision it wants to make.
Well, I mean, it's not, an outrageous idea or request. I mean, it's only a couple of weeks, so, I mean, it's okay. I would vote for it.
It's not a big deal either way. It's been under discussion for some time now, but if the board, if the majority of the board feels that it would be better to wait, that's fine. I'm happy going forward on the 2nd, but anybody else?
Can I just note that another option would be to open it on the 2nd of April, but also hold it open to the following meeting if you feel that.
That is true.
More time.
Yeah.
Just another option.
That is true. All right, should we anybody else want to speak to the amendment? All right, so then a vote on the amendment to change to the 16th of April, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so to change from the amendment is to change the public hearing from the 2nd day of April to the 16th day of April. All those in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
I think it's 4-3, the amendment's defeated. So we move forward on 2nd of April, but with the option to extend that day if we feel that there is a need.
Let's vote on the resolution as proposed.
Yep, yep. All those in favor of the resolution? Aye.
Aye.
Those who are against the resolution itself?
Nay.
Nay? Okay, so I heard 5-2. Let's try that one more time. All of those in favor of setting the public hearing on April 2nd, say aye. Aye. Those opposed to setting the public hearing on April the 2nd?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so I hear 5-2. Okay? So the resolution is set, the public hearing is set for April 2nd with the potential that night to decide if we need to hear more, that we could continue it forward. All right? The release of the Poughkeepsie Galleria bond, be it resolved that at the request of the developers of the Galleria, pursuant to the recommendation of the Director of Municipal Development, hereby authorizes the supervisor or her designee to execute such documents as may be required to release and return the Galleria's $20,000 bond, which was originally posted in 1986, decreased in 1987, and further decreased in 1990. It was to secure the completion of pavement, landscaping, sanitary, stormwater supply, lighting, and curb work at the Galleria. All that has been done, and so we should release that bond, is the argument. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The resolution carries 7-0. That's
I was just
good.
gonna say,
Okay.
back then, that was awful.
I
Still a
know.
lot of money.
I know, it's from a long time back. I think that the Galleria just figured out, and we just figured out that we still owe them that $20,000 back, so, we will return it forthwith, so. Okay, the next
Okay.
one would be to Bill.
Be resolved, Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby appoint Dan Friedman to the Board of Ethics for a term which expires on February 28th, 2026. And that the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby appoint Jessica Moran as the employee representative to the Board of Ethics for a term expiring on February 28th, 2027. So moved.
Second. Thank you so much for serving. Jessica, the employee representative must be a resident of the town, so I really appreciate you doing that, and I think it'll be great to have you there. Any discussion?
Yeah, so I would just say, Supervisor, that, I know both of these individuals, they're exceptional individuals, so thank you for making that appointment. I know Dan is a resident of the First Ward, so, and he's, I think, would be very impartial. And maybe I missed it because I was out, but what I would like to see or have seen is a, resume or some sort of information or some sort of advance to the board so that we would have some opportunity, so to be able to see the experience on the individuals. So I would just ask at this point, because I know the individuals, is any of the two individuals an officer of any political party that you're aware of?
No.
Because that would exclude them from
No, they are not.
serving.
So,
Okay. All right, so fine.
and we have had uncertain, so people have written and said, I'm interested, I've lived they haven't really sent a resume so much as, I've lived in the town 30 years, I have an interest in
Right.
serving, and for a
Yeah, it's
position
full
like
life,
this, we haven't really asked for a full resume, but we might want to talk about that as a board, because I appreciate the desire
Well,
to know
I'm
what.
referring to the town website,
Yep.
indicating that would be an exclusion or anything.
Absolutely.
And I just thought it would help to be sure before we,
Yep.
so that the town board, you're asking the town board to vote on it.
Yep.
We should have some information about it, or we could
Yep.
have some information about it.
Neither is a political party.
Okay.
So,
Officers.
I have a comment. You might know another Dan Friedman, but the Dan Friedman who is going to serve on the Board of Ethics is from my ward,
Oh,
Ward 2.
okay, different Dan
And
then.
he is right here.
I was
Hello,
wondering.
Dan.
Hi, Dan.
He also sent in his
Oh, Dan.
resume. We just feel like we don't need to share that. We could share that among the town board members, but
That's
I don't think we should put it in the packet.
No, we
And
didn't
really,
get
No,
it.
no, I'm
We
asking
didn't
we know
get-
who
we
we're
didn't get
voting
an
for,
email
that's all.
about it either,
Yeah, that's all.
with the
but we
resumes.
shouldn't put it.
I apologize,
all
Dan.
this information out there on the website.
No, I
No.
think Bill just meant amongst us.
Amongst us.
Yes.
Yep, duly noted. Okay.
Okay.
That's an
Any
internal
further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0. Okay. Resolution 10 goes to Barb, I believe.
This is about the property on 8 Railroad Avenue in the hamlet of New Hamburg, sorry. So there is a recorded right-of-way across the property that would arguably provide an access right to the town. So in order to improve the property, the historic right-of-way needs to be extinguished. And the attorney to the town and Director of Municipal Development have consulted all relevant town departments. They've ascertained that the town has no infrastructure in the right-of-way, makes no use of the right-of-way, and has no foreseeable need for the right-of-way. So we are resolving to declare any rights it may have the town to suspend those rights, and that they are to be surplus and no longer in need to the town. So the extinguishment of such potential rights is not an action subject to secret, and the town supervisor is hereby authorized to execute a quitclaim deed in favor of 8 Railroad Holdings LLC in the same or substantially the same form attached. And this resolution is adopted subject to a permissive referendum as provided by law. And the town clerk is authorized and directed to post notice of such resolution. So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? I think this one goes back even further than the 1980s. This is a
this is
really
like-
old,
It's over 100 years old, yeah. And
We
the-
have no idea why there was
parcels were not even arranged the same
Yeah.
way back then, and it's unclear if the parcel that's now the town park was associated with this right-of-way, but in order to clear their title, they're just asking us to
Great.
release that.
If there
I
any-
think it's exceptional now, and I know this is the first ward, by the way. So I do know the area, and, I couldn't see how this could be possible.
Right, there's
because I know-
bushes there.
Right, because there's bushes
Yeah.
and there's a house, so I
Right.
don't know how, but it had to do with something going to the park and the right of way.
it's a very
But-
ancient right-of-way.
Yeah, right, but just to reach to give, kudos to, whoever the landlord is, because I couldn't really find it. Have you seen the house?
Only on Google, I mean, I
Of
haven't
the work that
been
they've
down.
done?
Mhm.
It's fantastic, so it's a really big improvement to the community, and anything we can do to help the landlord certainly obtain clear title would be wonderful, so.
It's great, and I want to thank Ms. Zalen again for being here. If anybody has any questions, she's here to answer questions.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0. Thank you.
Didn't quite hear the second. Did you?
Whoop, who seconded it?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I think several of us did at the same
I
time,
don't,
maybe then.
I'm sorry.
All right, Ann,
Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the supervisor to execute field license extension agreements between the town of Poughkeepsie and the town of Poughkeepsie Little League Girls Softball, Inc. and Poughkeepsie Mid-Hudson Babe Ruth. No secret review. So moved.
second. Okay, any discussion, questions? All right, we can play ball. Batter up. Softball and baseball for this year. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0.
Okay, I believe this is in the fourth ward, this one?
I think it is.
Okay, this is the one off Sunset, right?
That's right.
Okay, so this is basically naming a road for purposes only, known as the Project for Habitat for Humanity, which will be going off Sunset to Lashley Lane, and that's for 911 purposes. So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the creation of Lashley Lane?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0.
Resolution 13, and this addresses providing a 4-year term for the elective office of town clerk. Such 4-year term to commence on January 1, 2026. If adopted by the town board, is subject to voter approval on November 4th and will become effective immediately. So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, this is setting April 2nd again for a public hearing. Any discussion?
I'm doing this for Jessica.
Yeah, we have, how many
Or
public hearings
someone.
on that day? 3? 3 public hearings?
I think we have at least 2, maybe 3. Yep, well, we had 3 tonight,
It's
but
gonna be a long day then.
yeah, it may be.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
There's
Any
gonna be at
opposed?
least 30 people that turn out for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
This one might be fairly short. All right,
Gotta
anybody
find some
opposed to setting the public hearing on April 2nd? All right, 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay, number 14, I have to recuse myself from this, and I'm told that I'm supposed to go sit in the audience, so I'm gonna go join the audience and
Okay,
pass
you
this
do
on
that.
to Rebecca.
I just want
Okay.
to say thank you for that last one because, you know, anybody that becomes the town clerk in the future, a 4-year term really makes so much sense.
Right.
Really
Well,
does.
so does the town board.
But
Makes a lot of sense for us to be.
And
lawyers,
staggered,
too.
3 and 3. I
Right.
brought this forth at a
Yes.
workshop a couple years
Right.
ago, and I haven't, it's not that I haven't tried. Third term will be a charm.
Maybe we'll see where we go on
Maybe,
that.
we'll see.
Okay, good. All right, whereas the town's short-term rental regulations authorize the town board to set the total number of short-term rental permits that may be issued in the town, and whereas we find it appropriate to set that limit, therefore be it resolved that we set the following limits on short-term rental permits. 1, the total number of permits for unhosted short-term rentals as a principal commercial use shall be limited to 10. 2, the total number of permits for hosted short-term rentals and unhosted short-term rentals accessory to a residential use shall be limited to 20. Permits shall be issued on a first-come, first-served basis. Be it further resolved that these limits shall remain in place until changed by further action of the town board, and this is not, this requires no environmental review under SECRA. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
We are, if I remember correctly, we said we weren't gonna put too many in one spot. We were gonna approve them based on how many are in an area. Did we ever come up with a mechanism for that?
I don't really think we can, unless we find that there are certain areas, Emily can correct us on this, unless we find that there's a particular area where we feel that it would be detrimental to the community in some specific way. We're not sort of apportioning them by wards, but we're saying that overall, 10 unhosted commercial and 20 of the other kind, a total of 30, is plenty for the town, and we don't want to have hundreds of these things. I was told that Beacon has 160 Airbnbs. I don't know if that's true or not. But that, of course, crowds out long-term housing. And so the goal here is to, allow some short-term rentals, but to not overdo it and make sure that we're not, we're not having a lot of our housing taken up by that.
Should we put something in here that, I would hate to have 20 in one area. That would really take over a whole neighborhood. So maybe we should limit it to, coming back to the zoning board or at least the town board, if there's more than 5 in any one area, so we can do it on a case-by-case basis, not to exceed that number. We could decide if we want it in that ward, if it fits if it's okay, I mean, if it's not gonna, I don't want, you know,
I'm fine with that if it's legal, but I'm not sure.
Checking, yeah.
Wouldn't we have the jurisdiction to say, well, I guess,
well, I just hate to have
you
too
can't
many
just
in one
say-
neighborhood on one road, you know?
I understand,
Too
but
late.
you can't just say, oh, there's no, you can't go there because we already have two on that street.
But if we
So,
limit it to five,
get
wi-
sued,
it's a special, if we say it's a special, well, it's not a special use permit, is it?
It would still require a special use, we will still require a special use permit for those that are unhosted commercial,
Might not be reasons to deny.
like the
a
ones we've been
Listen,
doing. That process won't
Listen, I've
end.
got all the college kids that with me, I'd hate to have that with this in another neighborhood, is what I'm saying. So I'm trying to avoid another neighborhood becoming overrun with it.
As Emily looks this up, I can't remember what the total is that we have now that have been permitted.
So the total cap now on the unhosted commercial is 30, and there is no cap on the hosted ones.
Okay.
So this would be considerably lower. I do feel very differently about the hosted ones, because I feel like that's a little bit, you know,
Hosted's
you're gonna,
better,
right,
yes.
exactly.
Hosted is
So
definitely, we got control over these, but the unhosted ones are scary.
the unhosted ones, we are limiting to 10 townwide, rather than 30 as was done before.
So the reason I hesitated is there are two different sections here. So within the short-term rental section, for unhosted, the code says that the town board can establish the number of permits that may be issued for the unhosted. The initial number is 30. The town board shall have the discretion to limit the number that may be issued in any zoning district or in any specific area of the town. Now, the hosted ones, we don't have that same language, but it seems like it's the unhosted.
The unhosted
right.
ones we're worried about.
So we gave ourselves that power,
Okay,
okay? That's good,
As
I'm
long
glad
as
you
it's in
asked.
there, okay, thank you.
I'm glad you
job,
asked. Okay, any further discussion?
Does anybody know how many, does anybody know how many number there was on, like when Granicus came, was there like 100 or that?
I-
It was like 40.
Oh, 40.
It's
Wow.
always in
Where was
flux
that?
because there are more
In the
listings and then some of them haven't actually been
Exist.
active for a while and
Exist
things
already,
like
I
that.
was just
But
curious.
I believe that we've approved about 5
Right, that's all.
unhosted.
I think Ann's right, I think
Right.
it was around 40.
And we did check, this is beneath the number that have come in for applications now, so we're not, so. Okay,
Oh, just one other
Yep.
comment, maybe because of the permits being issued on a first come, first served basis, it will help us get those people to come in and get their permits, or they will lose out.
Yep. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0. 6-0, sorry about that, 6-0 with one board member recused, appreciate that. Okay, I think Bill, 15 goes to you, is that right?
What's that? 15?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
We're hiring a sewer maintenance
Oh,
mechanic.
that's right, Andy. Yeah, okay. Be resolved, Town Board, Town Poughkeepsie does hereby appoint Matt Salvero as a full-time sewer maintenance mechanic position in the sewer department, salary grade 7, step 4, $31.08 per hour, with additional 50 cents an hour CDL pay effective March 10th, 2025. Which appointment shall be subject to a probationary period described by the rules of classified civil service of Dutchess County, and that the town supervisor or her designee are authorized to execute a file and file all documentation required by the Dutchess County Department of Human Resources in connection with this appointment. So moved.
Second. All right, any discussion? We welcome Mr. Saldiviero. Glad he's joining us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0.
Resolution 16, the town board is hereby appoint David Tesoro to a part-time fire inspector position with building at the salary of grade 10, step 1, $34, and I'm gonna round to 96 cents per hour, effective March 11th, 2025. And the appointment is subject to a probationary period as described by civil service, and the town supervisor or her designee are authorized to execute and file all documentation required by Dutchess County Department of Human Resources. So moved.
Second. All right, any discussion? All right, we welcome Mr. Tesoro as fire inspector. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0.
17 is notice of claim.
17's notice of claim. The town clerk has no events this week.
So that brings us to number 19, which is the SC resolution, Mike.
Okay.
19 is be resolved, Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie hereby grant special consent to the following items to wit. Authorize Edwards to vacate correct billing for Hudson Heritage Sewer District, and be it further resolved that upon the objection, a member of the Town Board item may be removed from the list and voted on separately. So moved.
Second. All right, so we're willing to consider this tonight? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0. Okay.
Whereas the Hudson Heritage Water Sewer District was formed to construct.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's okay, Mike. Was formed to construct infrastructure and provide wastewater collection and treatment services to the district area, and pursuant to the map plan and report for the district, wastewater user fees for parcels within the district are composed of a charge for a debt service, which is based on a benefit unit calculation, and a charge for treatment, operation, and maintenance, which is based on flow. Whereas town officials, in consultation with legal counsel, have determined that billing for benefit unit charges issued for the tax year 2025 was premature because the town has not incurred the predicate borrowing, and such billing should be corrected. This action has no effect on the fees for treatment, operation, and maintenance costs. The town board authorizes and directs the supervisor to take the steps necessary to vacate or correct the billing. So moved.
Second.
Okay, so what happened here is that this is an incredibly complex project that has a commercial side and a residential side, and the question of when the town was going to begin borrowing and in which tax year, and then when we could begin billing the commercial customers for that work caused us to, as the resolution says, bill prematurely, so we need to correct that for 2025, and then we'll bill in 26. Any questions? Yeah, and I want to thank everybody, including Emily and Jennifer Mond and everyone who waded through this to get this right.
Jim really did the work.
And Jim Nelson, it was a big team figuring this out, so. All right, and I'm really glad to get this done now, because the county also has to approve it, so we want to try to make sure that we get this fixed on these tax bills. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0. I believe then the last thing to do is to open the floor for public comment from anyone who may wish to speak on items that were not on our agenda tonight. So moved?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0. Anyone who would like to speak on items that were not on our agenda tonight? Doreen?
Hello?
Hi, Doreen?
No, it's not.
No, this is Anthony Cocello. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
Hi, Anthony.
Good, thank you. I just wanted to say a couple things. I didn't have an opportunity to speak earlier about the application, but wanted to point out that Vassar has 20 trustees. Only one, which is the president, actually lives in the town of Poughkeepsie. That information is available for anyone to look at. But also, I saw a podcast that she was on, and around minute 7, although it's a different subject matter, she talks about being available to local officials. I bring that up because of the call that people had been interested in. I'm not sure if they ever were able to reach out or get in touch with anyone from Vassar. That being said, with these applications coming forward, I don't know that we ever see anyone from Vassar. The other thing would be an article that I saw from their local paper where they're amassing properties in the Arlington area. And I just wanted to bring that stuff up to, bring out that the students that come here are really visiting. And once they're done, they leave. And that's obvious with the people that are trustees. They live all over the country, and they aren't really residents here. So when these projects come up and you're looking at battery storage, I really want to know who it's for. And is it really part of a bigger, part of their endowment, let's say? Or what is it really serving? So, I'm kind of weaving in and out here, but these projects are important to battery storage, I get it. But is it related to solar or wind power, you know, that sort of thing, they're tied together. And it would be great if we had more of a source of these things, not necessarily the storage part. And so I just wanted to be able to get some of that stuff out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Doreen?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, for some reason I could not unmute. All I wanted to say was there was a question about how many short-term rentals were in the town previously. And since the town was having problems last year with Granicus, I had filed FOIL request with the county to find out what the actual amount was. So in second quarter of last year, Granicus found 43 short-term rentals in the town of Poughkeepsie. So that was the number before there was actually enforcement letters and things going out to the town, from the town. So 43.
Great. Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, seeing no one else, oh, yes, did you want to speak as well on something that was not on the town board agenda? Yes, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Wayne Costigan. Not a resident of your town. I come from Wingdale, New York. But I've had 2 interactions with your police department, both of which were horrible. And I brought a picture of my daughter, Sarah. She's the one in the white cap and gown. This is her graduation photograph from BOCES back in 2015, so it'll be 10 years this June. She can't be here because she's 100% disabled with autism. And she wouldn't understand what's really going on, and she would probably interrupt. So, you know, I brought the picture instead. And I bring this because the last encounter with the police department, I mentioned to them at least 6 times the same phrase. She's 100% disabled with autism. They ended up abandoning her, and she was lost and missing for 4 hours. Now that is a crime according to PL Public Law 260.24. It can rise to the level of a felony under 26032 and 26034. My wife, Connie, who's with her in the picture, filed a civilian complaint, and it was upheld against 2 officers. They were found guilty, in other words, of negligence. We're trying to get them to be charged with either these misdemeanor charges or these felony charges if it can be proven that they did it with malice aforethought, which I think they did because they don't like me being in the town with my political sign. And that's how this whole thing started. We were attacked last October 7th by the brother of a chief of police for Hyde Park. And he got a get out of jail free card by announcing to the officers at the scene that my brother is Donnie Goddard. We have this on tape. I have overwhelming proof of my innocence. I didn't attack him, he attacked me, and by extension her, because she cannot be left alone. I have overwhelming proof because I carry with me a digital audio recorder. I offered the officers at the scene a chance to listen to it. They declined. So my arrest is also a false arrest for the simple reason they didn't do a thorough investigation. Had they listened to the voice of this man charging at us, saying, we're gonna duke it out. This is a fight, we're gonna fight. And we went to hand combat, and I put him down, and I sat on top of him, because I didn't have handcuffs, I don't have a taser, I don't have a dog to hold him like the cops would be doing. I just simply pinned him down, and they arrested me. Like I said, that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that then they then abandoned my daughter. She was missing for 4 hours. So if you see me exercising my First Amendment rights, in your town, like I've been doing, right here on the corner, with signs disparaging your police department, I want to let you know, this is the reason. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further speakers tonight, I move that we adjourn at 9:07 PM. So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the resolution passes 7-0. Thanks, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.